in logistics or in shipping industry, that we have to go a long way. Someone from Fab India did highlight one thing, that they had 15,000 artisan female artisans, right? From female artisans to the dais over here, where we have vice presidents, we have co-owners, we have owners over here, we have someone from army. Such a big forum and dais that we have. So let's see how we can, contribute to this industry, and how this industry has changed for females, for women in this industry, from where we were to where we are. We have one of the very own veteran from the industry, who is really known and who is really experienced, and it gives me immense pleasure to start this dais with you, and to have a very important question for you, which is, how do you define your leadership style, and how has it evolved over time, in especially in the shipping sector? Because I'm sure when you started your career, there were very, very few females in the shipping sector, in logistics sector, and we want to understand, how did you get over this journey?
Thank you, Dhara, for that question. I think I'm going to take the second part of your question first, where you've asked me how I evolved. You're very right. For the benefit of the audience who wouldn't be so familiar with the shipping industry, I was the first woman full-time executive functional director on the board of the Shipping Corporation of India, which is the largest national shipping company. And I wasn't born and bred in the company. I straight away came onto the board level. So you can imagine what a welcome I would have got. And so my leadership style evolved out of the situational requirement.
Mhm.
And that's why I just explained, gave a little bit of an introduction, that I came straight at the board level of Navratna, largest, most diversified shipping company of India. And then I rose on because of my determination. A lot of what Dada said just before. So I think this goes into continuity, flowing straight, as if, the earlier session is continuing. So I stuck on. Of course, people did want me to go back, and it was my determination and belief which made me stick on despite all resistance and hostilities. And I rose to be the first chairperson of the Shipping Corporation of India, first woman to become the. So
That's
my
amazing.
leadership thus evolved to be a situational leadership. And when I say situational leadership, I was depending upon what the situation and the requirement was. I would say that for a leader to be successful, you strictly cannot have one leadership style. And because the situation is always evolving and very dynamic, as well as what Dada also said, you've got to lead a team. And one size fits all doesn't apply. You've got a diverse, and sometimes more so in a public sector, you might be having three generations to deal with, and you cannot apply the same leadership style to all of them. So, out of my situational leadership, I was more of a democratic and a transformational leader, where I used to ensure, push my team to give me new ideas and to do things better. And of course, since I had come from outside, it was also a necessity for me. There was no shame in saying that I didn't know everything. So, having a democratic style of leadership helped me to get a lot of ideas out of them. But having said that, when it came to the board and to the management, I was more of a visionary and a strategic leader. And that is the reason, despite the COVID, when I was there at the helm of affairs, the company actually broke records of decades in not only one parameter, over multiple parameters. So I think it was eventually, yes, the team makes a lot of difference, but team is good, leader is no good. There's It's a very, very difficult situation. Leader is good and you don't have a good team, it's an equally bad situation. So I think it's a combined effort, but we together, I had an excellent team. I could motivate them, inspire them, and we did wonders despite the COVID. And the results are there in the public domain to say that.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful, Harjeet, and it's really nice to hear that how leaders change their leadership style based on the situations, right? And it becomes all the more important when you are in shipping industry, when you have to not only deal with the situation of logistics or shipping, but also deal with the situation of gender biasness that you had at that point of time. Of course, we have come a long way, but I think we are still yet to go, because we saw two panels in the start with all the males in the panel, and now we have the third panel of female. So when we have two panels of male and two panels of female next time, Nora, that's going to be where we are, reaching to the next level.
Yeah. In fact, Nova, we have a small request that since we are professionals who proved our worth to reach the level that we are, we shouldn't be selected only for women panels. I tell you, I've become fed up of being a woman brand ambassador, and I feel my professionalism is getting diluted by that.
So we are going to have next, Harjeet. You, that's a request for you, Nora. But I think it's really amazing that Blue Ocean has given us this platform, and somewhere we have to start, right? Somewhere we have to start with the panels. One panel we start, and then we start having a more diverse panel, as you're talking about, ma'am. And that's where we will go ahead with this. Now, my next question is, I think, to Sanjam, because I mean, I know that you are already running such conferences and forum. Can you share some personal journey of yours in shipping industry and logistics, and the challenges you faced as the woman in the field?
Yeah, thank you so much. And firstly, thank you to Nova and the Blue Ocean Corporation for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here today. So, I'll just give you a background. My father is a master mariner who left sea very young to set up the shipping business, and we are two daughters. So, when we joined the family business as trainees, people would ask my father, "Oh, you have only two daughters, no sons, you poor man, what will you do?" And there was also a lot of resistance from within the company. When the managers were not willing to accept us, and we started right at the bottom, and we had to work twice as hard just to prove our worth, that we were deserving just to be there. There are a few incidents that I remember back in 2001 when I joined the industry. At that time, most of the forums, the gatherings, conferences would be only gentlemen, and the very few women would be at the sidelines. And at one such conference that I went to, the speaker addressed the gathering just as gentlemen, as though the women in the room did not exist. And I felt, very bad. And I came back to the office and I Googled women in shipping. And that's how I came across the Women's International Shipping and Trading Association, which I went on to launch in India in 2012. But there were other funny incidents that took place in the course of my career. I remember going to a client's office once and they kept waiting. And then I asked them, "What are you waiting for?" They said, "We're waiting for your boss to arrive." So I had to tell them that no, the meeting is with me. And then they said, "Oh, we didn't realize that the meeting is with you." And then they started the meeting. There was another case where a client came to the office for a demurrage negotiation, and he refused to speak to me. He said, "I want to speak to somebody responsible." That means a man. So then we had to get somebody to speak to him who was a man, who with poetic justice didn't get the discount that we were going to give him, because me probably would have given him a bigger discount. But there was incidents like that that shaped my career. And I think that being a woman in the industry um, um, also has a lot of positive um, positivities. I think that women bring a lot of skill sets to the table. Since I was the founder of Vista in India, I was on the board of Vista International for 7 years, and then I launched Maritime CEO. We did a study in 2020 that showed that having more women, actually a business case for having more women in the industry. And having more women means greater productivity, higher profitability, better teamwork, greater innovation. Therefore, I think that the supply chain industry should also embrace women, and I'm really happy to be part of this industry today. And as Mrs. Joshi said, that we want to be integrated in all the panels next time. We want to speak as professionals, speak to our level of expertise as well. So that's a little bit about me.
No, very well said. Here you have your answer already. I think all the men in the room are really so nice to acknowledge these facts. And I always feel this is not only from Sanjan's side, but I think what we always say is behind every successful man, there is a woman, but behind every successful woman, there is a progressive man. And I can see a lot of leaders over here. I'm sure you will go back to your organizations and of course encourage the female in your industry to come and join you. And I have one progressive man, I don't know where my husband is sitting, but yeah, he's also one of them who has really brought me into this industry. uh, I was, when I started this industry, Sanjam and Harjiji, same like you, I was very scared because I saw very few females. And I think one big achievement that I had was that my husband, who was not my husband that time, but he was the one who really encouraged females to kind of come in this industry. And to your point, Sanjam, I think it really matters because nowadays what we see in logistics, I mean, so many situations, right? And we females are also very well versed to do multitasking. So that brings a lot on table for the supply chain industry because we know how situations are changing, how the dynamics are changing, and we are well versed to see and cater to all the dynamics of this industry. So my next question in relation to this is to Ms. Subra. I mean, I know that you're coming from ways, you have really dealt with various backgrounds, and you're from army. I mean, you're the first female, she's the first female, I came to know just few minutes back that she was the first female army officer to be on the Kargil board. So that's amazing to have. And I think that's really making things more diverse. Here we have people who have started, the first one to start the shipping industry, female in shipping industry, be the board of directors of one of the very known maritime industry. Then we have Subra here. So my question to Subra is, what trends do you foresee in supply chain industry that will impact women in leadership roles in the next 5 to 10 years?
Thanks, Zara, for this question. I'm audible? Yeah. So we see a good shift in the supply chain industry in coming 5 to 10 years. As we see, I'll say that there are three driving forces which is really changing the face of entire supply chain industry. First being the technology, second sustainability, and third is customers. So we have been hearing this throughout the first half of it. So digital tech transformation, it's it's just going on. We cannot say anything about it. We can see the businesses integrating with the advanced technologies like AI, ML, robotics, blockchain, data analytics. And Gartner in one of the reports said that 75% of the large organizations will be adopting to AI by 2025. So, given that and the keenness of women leaders in this field brings an opportunity as well as challenge. So, nothing comes, everything has a flip and a flop, right? So, it will give them an opportunity. As such, it will be a challenge because now we are talking about Industry 4.0. There would be a thought of having real time data analytics, right? Predictive maintenance, all these things are going to be the foray of supply chain operations, where women leaders will with tech abilities will have a good foresight to lead. Second, sustainability. So we had very good sessions on sustainability. Sustainability is not only a buzzword now, it's a necessity. And as we see, government across the globe are making organizations responsible for whatever impact they are giving on the environment, right? So circular economy, sustainable practices. All these are going to be very integral part of supply chain in next 5 to 10 years. And again, women who are very, very passionate about driving these initiatives as CSR, sustainability will have a forehead. Third, risk, resilience and risk management. We all went through COVID-19 pandemic, and we saw the vulnerabilities supply chain had during that time. With that, there is an increased focus of bringing resiliency in supply chain so that our operations, our supply chain can manage any disruptions. With this, we really need to have a risk management thought that has to be built into the strategy which is going to come up. Crisis management, crisis leaderships, these are going to be the budge. So how do we do that? Might be looking at diversifying the supply basis, going for more regional and local sourcing, making some ethical sourcing, a couple of things. So these are going to be the trends coming in coming years. Then e-commerce. We have seen, again, go back to the pandemic, we have seen the increased rise in this industry. Stats say that by 2025, this industry has a potential to be 7.4 trillion US dollars. If that's being the potential of this industry, there has to be a phase shift. Consumers have become very demanding. We have to have a foray of working on consumers' experiences and expectations and their requirements. So that is going to be a driving force again, because things, they want flexibility, they want speed. So we will have to deliver at that level. And last and not the least, workforce. We say we will have to be in the foray with the technology. So the workforce where technology is aiding us drive our supply chain, but at the same time, my man behind the machine is very important. We will have to make investments. We will have to drive cultures as women leaders or leaders, I would say, to drive learning, continuous learning, and innovation in the organizations to adapt to the technology so that man can understand the technology, manage it, and leverage it. So these are going to be some of the critical trends which we can foresee in coming 5 to 10 years. Thank you.
That's amazing, Subra, because what I understand is if we are talking about sustainability, we are talking about supplier relationship management, we are talking about AI, we are talking about lot of new technology and the new buzzes that we are hearing every day in, day out. But I think it's time for us to see how we are going to develop that and implement that in the upcoming 5 to 10 years. And I think very well mentioned that you have to go step by step. I think one important thing is resilience, right? What we all see. We are going to get some pushback. We are going to get information, and which is too much of information. But we see how we are resilient to it and how we are going to implement it. But that brings a new question for me to Saleha, who is seen a diverse country culture plus even diversity in our supply chain. So, my quick question to you is what advice would you give to the young women aspiring to become leaders, especially in the shipping and logistics industry? Over to you.
Thank you, Dara, for a lovely question. Leadership comes with a lot of responsibility. So I think if you want to advise somebody how to become a leader, they first need to invest in themselves because that's where it'll take them. I always feel that, having a strong vision is extremely important. As a young person, when you look out far beyond, you need to chart out your goals, your vision, have something planned out, break it down, and then work towards it. And it's very important to be in a constant process of learning in this journey because educating yourself and adapting to change, understanding the changes that are coming in the industry, and then accordingly trying to be ahead of the game. That's most important. That's where most leaders tend to win the game, because they're always ahead of the game. Reading books of biographies of leaders. I would say, like, choose your leader, whoever you admire, whoever you look up to. Read about their lives, read about their thoughts, how they have reached where they are, what was their journey like, what were the challenges they faced, and how did they overcome the challenges. Because the lessons are in those. Because challenges come with their opportunities, and most leaders look at challenges as doors of opportunity. They never look at them as barriers. In fact, Mrs. Joshi, we all know, she always says that whenever she came across a barrier, she felt, that I need to push myself further to prove myself to others. And that's where you polish yourself as a diamond. You come out, rise, shining. So challenge yourself, be ahead of the game. Also, another way is to network. Go for networking opportunities, meet people, socialize, communicate. It's important that you get out of your comfort zone and meet people. A lot of people have social anxiety. They're not able to, communicate well, but that's okay. It comes slowly. It's a build up. It's a journey. If you stop at yourself, you'll never get where you want to be. So I think there are a lot of things that one can do to achieve a vision of a good leader. It's not impossible. It's all there. Today we are lucky that we have access to a lot of information. At the click of a button, you come to know of stories of some of the top people in the world, whoever they are. Like, you just got to read, and you'll get intricate details about their lives. So that also helps to give you a lot of strength. That's how you chart your goals. You look up at others, you get inspired, you get motivated. And most importantly, like I said, when you invest in yourself, take up some kind of learning. If you feel that you need to become confident, then take up some kind of courses constantly. You can get coached also. If you think you have if you want to learn how to get into public speaking, that also helps. Because when you start into your leadership journey, you will be asked to speak up. What you say will matter. People will look up to you. So it's all something that you can build up. These are skills that you can develop over time. Nobody is born with all these skills. It all comes with time. That's what I would like to share.
Absolutely, Saleha, because this is so important for all of us to grow, to evolve with time, and to keep ourselves upgraded. So it's whether it is young female generation or the new men coming in the industry, new candidates coming in the industry, keep yourself upgraded, because I think that's what the world is doing. We are in the technological world and we can't be behind. But that brings back question to you, Harjiji. I think there is very important question that in what ways do you think your approach to leadership models in the logistics industry, how have you kind of come across this way?
Uh, so thank you, Dhara, for that question. Like I already shared with you, I was a new breed into the forest, I would say. So I wasn't born or bred, neither did I grow in the industry. I came from the oil industry, a totally different industry. So I was an alien in the industry, and it takes time for anybody to really accept you. So, and I also shared with you that I was not only an alien in terms of not having been part of the industry, but also being the first woman. And logistics, shipping, maritime is a very, very male dominated industry. And having been the first woman to enter, so obviously all my predecessors had been men. The industry all around had men at leadership positions. So no way I could have imitated their leadership levels and be successful. So since I was different, I had to have my own leadership style. And I think that was the change which I brought, because I came from outside. I brought new insights, new learnings, new ideas, which I implemented. So many times we are resistant to change. We accept the same leopard who has the spots very much like us, because you gel together. So that's why the saying goes, birds of the same feather talk together. But sometimes that change is very important for the organizational growth and change. And I think that is exactly what happened in the history of Shipping Corporation of India, that we just broke records after I came on. And I think it was just because of the new ideas. There was a certain amount of uh,
Stereotypes.
not stereotypes. You get complacent with what you are doing. You're very accustomed to your leadership style. You keep doing things, so there is something which needs to come in and shake you up. So I think my leadership style was totally different from my predecessors or from others in the industry, primarily, like I said, because I was an alien. Number one, while I always say that leadership is gender neutral, the leadership is gender neutral for your own self, because you are wanting to perform and you are not conscious of the gender. Whereas everybody who's looking at you is looking at your gender. They are seeing you as a woman. So you cannot really disassociate. So you've got to handle them because they are not used to having a woman at a leadership position. So that itself brought on a new style of leadership. And third, and the most important, is that while I was at the helm of affairs, it was COVID. It was a lockdown. So it wasn't like my challenges were as God given were not enough. I even had COVID come on. And COVID itself even changed my own leadership style, in terms of that was the time, like what Dada was talking pre lunch, that there was so much of fear, there was so much of uncertainty. And that is the time when your team wants somebody whom they can follow with faith and belief. And you are under tremendous pressure. Exactly what he said, I am replicating, because that's exactly what happened in COVID. It was, I think, the most challenging time for most leaders. And COVID brought out a fresh breed of leaders, because the usual type of leaders could not sustain in the COVID. And it was people who could really take on the challenge, take on the risk, help to people to get over their fear. So these were the factors which brought out my leadership style, and it was totally different from the existing traditional leadership style, which was quite autocratic, because master mariners, they literally, they are kings on the vessel. So it's always a top down approach to leadership, which was not my style of leadership, like I've already shared with you.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Hajiji, to share to us as to how you have changed your leadership style. And which brings to my next question to Subra. Maybe in interest of time, quick question to you, Subra, is how can women leaders prepare for and capitalize on these trends which we were talking about to drive further change?
Yeah, so thanks, Zara, for the question. And I'll just take and continue with what my fellow colleagues they spoke of on the dais right now. So a couple of things, very straightforward. So we are moving in the world of digitalization. So enhancing your own technological skills is going to be a forte. Um, Enhancing your analytical capabilities, because now it is all big data, and understanding the data, strategizing on the data is going to be very important. So the leadership styles will be inclusive of data analytics. Then third, sustainability. You have to have a focus on sustainability, wherein if you can drive initiatives which are revolving around sustainable practices, circular economy, then that will give a good array for women as women leaders. So corporate social responsibility, sustainability, that's going to be another forte for women leader. Then fourthly, risk management and resilience. So it's now a age of risk management. We have to hone up our skills into risk management and crisis leadership, because then only we can formulate the strategies which can be going in tune with all the vulnerabilities and disruptions which are happening. Then fourth is stay informed. It's very, very, very important that we are abreast with the latest industry trends, markets, what is happening. And on top of it, we read articles, papers, participate in conferences. And for this, I would really raise a toast to Blue Oceans to host this conference, IPSC, where again it gives a credible platform for people to come, share, and learn their experiences. So go to conferences, attain webinars, and things like that. And not last thing is, you have to have a trust and a faith in yourself. That's going to be the driving force. These are all going to be the clutches which will give you a forte. But as women leaders, yes, a trust and a faith, like we all have been discussing, yes, we have to prove and reprove ourselves, but yes, we can do it, and we are doing it, and we will do it.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, Subra. And I have last two small questions for Sanjam and Saleha. Maybe a quick one, Sanjam. What are the key experiences that shaped you into a change leader within the logistics industry or
Yeah,
shipping industry?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks for that. So I think within my family business, it was easier for me to be a leader, and yes, I was from the industry. But I think one of the main things that I noticed was, I went to my dad one day and I told him that there are so many powerful women at that time. This I'm talking about 2001, in the industry, and I said that none of them are doing anything for other women in the industry. Why aren't there other women who are in positions of power speaking up or doing anything for women in the industry? So he said something very important to me that day. He said, the buck stops there, Sanjam. It doesn't matter if you don't have resources, if you don't have experience. If you feel strongly about something, you must take up the mantle and change it. And that's why I set about launching Vista in India. I was the winner of the 2018 Sandvik Gender Award, and that's how Maritime CEO was born. um, and then I got a little complacent, and I sat and I thought that, gave myself a pat on my back and said, I'm doing good work and things are happening well. And then there's an incident that completely changed my mindset. The companies of master mariners in India, my dad's a master mariner, so the company of master mariners in India, they decided to give me an honorary fellowship. And there was such a hue and cry against it, because one, I was a woman. Two, I was much younger than the other people who were getting the honorary fellowship that year by almost 2 decades. And that's when I realized that my work hadn't stopped, that yes, I have miles to go. So I have taken it up. I feel I have found my calling. That's my purpose in life. I feel that it's very important that I have a voice and people are listening. I want to do something for the industry. I want to make sure that we have a gender equal maritime industry. And I cannot do this on my own. I have wonderful panelists with me who are working towards the same goal. And I urge each and every one of you that we have to work together to create a more gender equal maritime industry, to logistics industry, to make sure it is more welcoming for women to come. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think very well said. It's not one person's job. I think it is not possible without the people engagement, people coming together and then working towards it. And that really brings to my last question before I sum up to Saleha, that what skills do you think that you believe on and you believe is the most crucial one for the women to aim to become the change as a leader in logistics?
So, personally, I would say, if you have passion for something, when you're passionate about something, you will go and do it, whatever it takes. So that, I think that's the number one skill we all need. And when you aim to get success in anything, whether it's your own business or whether it's you're working with an organization, passion is the first thing I think that drives you towards success. Secondly, I think again leadership, when you intend to inculcate leadership skills, it has to come with gaining some skills, and learning again is important. So yes, be hungry for knowledge. And when you're hungry for knowledge, you're going to learn whatever comes your way. Everything you take it as a lesson. Every opportunity, when you meet somebody, you want to learn something from them. When you read something, you want to learn something from them. So that hunger for knowledge is again a skill that I would say, as a leader, I would say you should have. Then again, I would say critical analysis of things, trying to understand how things work and how to make them problem solving. For example, again, whenever you are faced with an issue, how to deal with it, understanding the data behind it, and how to kind of find solutions. These again are very important skills that leaders require. And in your day to day life, you will come across situations where you are faced with problems, and it's important that you are in that situation to take a quick decision. Sometimes life doesn't give you much time, so in a very short time you have to make a decision, and it's important that you make an informed decision. And then another important aspect is, as a decision maker, you stand by your decision. Like, if you've made a decision, then you stand by it, and then don't regret it. Rather, you make it work for you. That is again a very, very important aspect. So these are some of the things I feel. And uh, yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Saleha. I think just to sum up, it was so nice to hear that you have to be the change you want to, right? Let's start somewhere, and that's where we all are here. Having said that, we saw in this entire forum that we learned that there are lots of new technology coming in. There is sustainability focus is there. We saw the stats of logistics, which was wonderful, that the industry is growing. So within supply chain, logistics is got a very important seat on the table after COVID. I think that's one important part for supply chain and logistics, that we have got the seat on the table. We are no more a cost center for any business units. We are a investment wherein you will get returns. So I think that's one important message, and we all are here to kind of say a very big thank you to participate and tell us what are the new trends and how women leadership can grow into the supply chain industry. So yes, Arjit.
So I just would like to thank Blue Ocean Corporation for giving us this opportunity. And for us, this is the beginning of the relationship. And I'm sure this relationship is going to grow with every passing year. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you so much. Over to you. And I should end the note on Jai Julelal too, right? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause for these beautiful women. Thank you for walking us through a brilliant, brilliant session. I would request you to please be there on the stage. We would love to felicitate you and do the honors. To do the honor, may I please invite on the stage beautiful, gorgeous, multi-talented Mrs. Nobha Nobert, ladies and gentlemen, Head of Events and Conferences at Blue Ocean Corporation. Please put your hands together and welcome Mrs. Nobha Nobert. I would like to call on the stage Mrs. Anjali Antony, Senior Manager Operations at Blue Ocean Corporation, to please join me on the stage in felicitating our speakers and moderator. So to start with, I would request Nova and Anjali to please felicitate Mrs. Harjeet Joshi. Everyone. Thank you so much. We would like to request Major Shubhra Agrawal to please come forward. We would love to felicitate you. I would now request Mrs. Saleha Sheikh to please come forward. Thank you very much. Now I would request Mrs. Sanjam Sahi Gupta to please come forward. Last but not the least, our beautiful moderator, Mrs. Dhara Vitlani Lakhwani. Please come forward. We would be happy to felicitate you. I would request my ladies to please come forward and have a group photo together. All right, everyone, the first ladies photo together. Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies, for joining me on the stage. Thank you, Nova, and thank you, Anjali, for presenting this. Now, it's time for our next keynote. Now, this is all about supply chain excellence using SCORE model. It's used and focused on critical framework for achieving supply chain excellence, that is SCORE model. To know how this powerful tool helps organization enhance performance and drive significant improvement in their supply chain operations. Let me welcome on the stage our next keynote speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as we invite on the stage Mr. Vipin Vaidyanathan, Senior Director and Head of Consulting at Blue Ocean Corporation. Please welcome Mr. Vipin Vaidyanathan. A very warm welcome, sir. How do you do?
I'm good. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I always dread this post-lunch sessions as a speaker. You never know how many people are going to turn up after the lunch. But thank you for all of you. I see the hall is still full, and that's very motivating for me. And also, when we have had such iconic speakers stand on this stage, it puts a lot of pressure on me to kind of live up to the expectations of the audience who's kind of taken a day off from your busy schedule and come to decide and come to spend the day with us. So let me get started. Let me just make sure the tech is working. All right. So I'm not going to be standing here on the podium. I'm going to be moving around a bit. I hope you're okay with that. And this is going to be a very short session. We originally had planned for 20 minutes, but I'm going to try and wrap it up in 15 minutes because we're running a bit behind schedule. So I'm trying to get us caught up. So does any of these words resonate with you, what you see on the screen? These are jargons we use almost on a daily basis in our organizations, right? Yeah? And as a practitioner, I've been doing business transformation, supply chain transformation consulting for about 2 decades now. And this is one of the things that most of my clients, throw at my team and me when we start a engagement with them. Which of these should I adopt? Which of these should I embrace? Which framework should I refer to? What matrices should I measure? Should I map out my processes or should I not? What metric should I use? And stuff like that, right? And these are all such familiar terms. And these are so common in our day-to-day operations in our offices. But there is no one single answer to this question, right? And this is what has always troubled me because different organizations like to go with different standards. They like to have their own definition for measurements. They like to have their own benchmarks. They like to compare themselves against organizations of their choice. And sometimes, unfortunately, those organizations are not best in class. They are as per their own convenience. And then they say, okay, we are better than XYZ, so we are the best. And we very conveniently ignore some other entity which is actually the best, right? So all of this happens with these words. And that's where this beautiful model, SCORE DS, comes in. I did not invent it. I'm not trying to market it. Yeah, this is something which I use as a practitioner amongst many other standards that I use, right? But today, I specifically want to talk about the SCORE DS model because this event is all about supply chain. And the SCORE DS model is something which has been designed specifically for the supply chain world. And why am I such a big fan of this model, right? The good part about this model is it allows me to start with an assessment. And this is something which a lot of my clients struggle with because when I go in, I'm always trying to convince them that you have opportunity for improvement. And then they question me saying, who are you to tell me? I've been in this business. I have won so many awards. I'm considered to be best in class. Who are you to tell me that there is opportunity for improvement? So it's not my word against them, but it's more against this global standard, which we call SCORE, which actually allows me to go in and very easily, with an effort of just a week or two, I'm actually able to assess their supply chain end to end. And you heard some of these terminologies in the morning. I'm sorry, the screens are not very clear, but what you're seeing there at the top right-hand corner is reliability, and you'll have to trust my word on this one, okay? So it's reliability, right? There is responsiveness, there is agility. These are all words which my other distinguished panelists spoke about in the morning, right? So this model actually allows me to measure these attributes of a supply chain in a very, very objective way, right? It's not subjective, mind you, it's objective. So I'm actually able to generate a score, right? I'm actually able to generate a score. So the numbers that you're seeing here on the third and the fourth, fifth columns are all numbers which actually indicate what is your current level of maturity on these attributes. And then, as if that was not enough, it also allows me to benchmark myself against my competitors, right? And I mean, again, it's not my word. This is because we have partnerships with some of the best consulting firms. So we are actually able to draw from that data and actually able to compare you with them, with your competitors, and tell you where do you stand. Yes? Now, I can do this not only from an operations perspective, I can also do this from a digital maturity perspective. So how effectively are you using technology in your supply chain? Right? And again, it's not very generic. It's very, very specific because it goes into the nitty-gritties of each stage of the supply chain. So in the planning function, how are you leveraging technology? In the ordering function, how are you leveraging technology? In the fulfillment, how are you? In the return, how are you? And so on and so forth, right? So the diagram that you see on the right-hand side is on the digital maturity side of things. Moving on, it can also help you to measure your sustainability maturity. So it's not just from an operations perspective, but a more holistic perspective, which includes sustainability, which also includes talent. So it also tells you how equipped is your current human capital to handle what you're setting out to handle. Do you have the right people? Do they have the right skill sets? Do you have any skill gaps? And if you have, then to what extent do you have a skill gap? And in which specific area do you have a skill gap? It tells you all of that. So I started off saying that I'm a big fan of this model, and the reason for that is this, because it actually allows me to very objectively assess your supply chain in a very unbiased manner and tell you very effectively what are your strengths, what are your opportunities for improvement, which areas are you doing well, which areas are you lacking, against your competitors or in your industry, where do you stand? And that becomes a very, very clear path for the leadership of the organization to decide what do we want to do with this information. And again, it's your choice. We are not prescribing that you have to address all these issues, right? As the leadership of the organization, you can decide which of these issues are priority for you. Where do you see yourself? So what I'm trying to say is it beautifully ties in to your organization strategy. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach where I come and tell you what to do just because it worked with somebody else, and I just do a cookie cutter and come and present it to you and say, come on, let's do the same for you, which is what most of the consulting firms unfortunately do. So here I'm actually able to customize it specifically to you and tell you in this scale of maturity, where do you stand from level 1 to level 5? Level 1 being an organization which doesn't have any documented defined processes and has no measurements in place. Level 3 being where within your organization, you have defined very clear processes and very clear matrices. And level 5 being where it is not just within your organization, but across your supply chain. And again, this is just an example of what I mean by level 1, 3, and 5. There is much more to this, right? Moving on. I'm really sorry about the resolution. It's something to do with the screen. It was perfectly all right on the presentation. So this is the overview of the model, right? And as you can see, it encompasses all the areas of the supply chain, right from planning to return. Yeah. At the first level, you have all the strategic elements of the supply chain, right? Which includes things like sustainability and all of that. Then at the next level, you have your high-level processes. And then at the third level, you have the detailed processes within those high-level processes, right? So within the planning function, what are the different things you need to plan? Within the ordering function, what are the different things that you need to consider? And that's your level 3, okay? And then at the last level, and I like to call this pragmatic standardization, because most of the other frameworks are very prescriptive, right? They kind of tell you exactly what needs to be done, and then they audit you against that standard. Here, while there is a standard, while there are process steps given to you, it allows for some amount of customization at level 4, right? And that's the beauty of this framework, because you can take all the best in class processes from the first 3 levels, and when it comes down to the 4th level, you actually have the flexibility to design processes the way you want to do it, which could be very specific to your industry, very specific to your organization, very specific to the regions that you operate in, the regulatory frameworks, the culture. So you get the best of both worlds. Yeah. And it not only just looks at processes. Processes is just one element. It looks at the performance, which is all about the targets and the KPIs and the measurements. It looks about the practices. So there are, I think, hundreds of best practices that are already embedded into the SCORE framework, which you can then pick and choose, right? And then you have the people element, which is, I can't emphasize it more. Pretty much all our panels have been talking about it since morning, right? So that's the beauty of this framework, because it's more holistic than just processes, right? Sorry, don't even bother looking at the slide. I will try and explain what is there. I don't know why it's showing up like this, but this slide is trying to tell you that across the various attributes of the supply chain, there are already metrics that have been defined, right? And the metrics have been defined both from a profit perspective on the top, from a planet perspective, and from a people perspective. So you can actually use these metrics as a standard way of measuring your processes. You don't have to come up with your own definitions, because these are the industry recognized, industry accepted definitions, which have been contributed by thousands of years of experience of hundreds of professionals across the world, right? So it allows you to measure it the right way, and then it allows you to compare where you stand with your competitors, and then that becomes your starting point for the improvement, right? Then coming to the practices part, like I said, there are hundreds of practices that are available as part of the framework, but then the question arises, which of those do I adopt? What is important for me as an organization from my own strategy perspective, right? Do I really need to invest in all of this? And some of it could be very tech heavy, very capital intensive investments, right? So this framework actually allows you to prioritize in a very structured way, right? Just to give you an example, I would always go for the quick wins, right? The low effort and high returns practices. So the framework actually allows you to pick and choose those practices which are very, very low in effort to invest, but will give you the best returns, right? And then if you really want to go very high on technology, that would get parked for maybe sponsorship approval or budgetary approvals, which is your high effort, high risk, and high return category. So this framework actually allows you to do that. Then comes your people part. As I said earlier, it allows you to assess the competency level of your human capital as it stands today, both from skill gaps perspective and also from efficiencies in the human capital. So how well are you utilizing your human capital? How productive they are, how effective they are, how efficient they are, right? It addresses both of those, and then also recommends the right intervention to bridge that skill gap. So it could be something like a training, it could be something like a mentoring, it could be something like a coaching, it could be something like redeploying a resource from one role to another role because probably they are better fitted in some other area given their skill background. Yeah? And once we have identified all these gaps, the framework also has embedded into it a methodology which has been derived from the Lean Six Sigma framework, the DMAC framework, if you're familiar with that. We have a own customized version of a framework, which then allows us to carve out transformation projects for your organization, which will help you to bridge those gaps. So whatever is your vision or whatever is the goal that your management has in mind for your organization and where you stand currently, we use this methodology, we call it the transformation racetrack. We use this methodology to kind of prioritize the right projects which will get you the best ROI on your objectives. So when I started off, I showed you a bunch of words, right? And now I'm just trying to marry all this back to that and tell you that, as you can see, this is not just a framework which prescribes the standards that you have to follow, but it also gives you all the tools and techniques to operationalize that framework. Yeah. And again, I'm skipping this slide, uh, bad slide, sorry about that. But what this slide is trying to tell you is it leads you to a path where you achieve those ROI that you set out to initially. I don't know why this is happening only with my slides. I'm very sorry about this. Uh, yeah. So basically, that's the message I wanted to leave you with. And I'm happy to share this deck with all of you if that helps. But thank you so much for listening to me patiently. And I'll let you move on to the next. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. May I request you to please be there on the stage?
Yeah.
Sir, may I request you to please come back on the stage? Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause. Thank you so much, Mr. Vipin Vedyanathan, for walking us through such an enlightening session. Thank you so much. We would be more than happy to give you token of appreciation. And sir, this is a gift from me.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call on the stage Mr. Douglas Kent, Executive Vice President, Corporate and Strategic Alliance, Association for Supply Chain Management, and Mr. Ambu Karlapuri, founder and CEO of KVR Refined Oil Products Trading. Ladies and gentlemen, we would love to felicitate Mr. Vipin Vedyanathan for his efforts and contribution. Please put your hands together, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vipin.
Thank you.
Moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, our next keynote is all about AI for supply chain transparency and traceability that will explore the transformative role of artificial intelligence in enhancing supply chain transparency. To get into the depth of this interesting topic, please join me to welcome on the stage our next keynote speaker, Mr. Vikram Idnani, President and Chief Information Officer at Landmark Group. Please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Vikram Idnani. How are you, sir? All good? All well? Awesome.
So another Jai Jhulelal to you as well. Excuse me. Jai Jhulelal to you as
Jai
well.
Jhulelal, absolutely Jai Jhulelal, sir. Kiya hai tawa?
Good, excellent. So, so my previous speaker talked about the dreaded post-lunch session. I'm between that dreaded session and the networking, the tea session, right? So hopefully I will try to make this a little more interesting for all of you. Now, we talked about artificial intelligence in supply chain, right? I think it's not only about artificial intelligence. Hence, what I've tried to focus on is just the overall digitalization of the supply chain. Because there's a lot more than just AI. AI is kind of a buzzword today, and everyone's looking at it. But I will try to get a little bit more into detail on various topics and different types of technologies that we can use, technology and practices we can use in the supply chain. Yeah. So this is about supply chain digitalization. I will just move on. Okay, is the slide? Let me look at this. Let me see if my slides are any better in color than my previous colleagues. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the traditional focus of supply chain. How has it been today? Yeah. What are the events and trends that have happened over the past few years that have now started to shape supply chains differently? How are they getting shaped up? How are they being redefined, for example, right? With all of these things that have happened over the last few years, how are we redefining supply chains? What are the objectives, and how is now technology coming in? Yeah. So I will then talk about building blocks for the supply chains and then the enablers and traceability. Right. Moving on to the basic focus of supply chains today or in the past has been essentially about profit, productivity, accuracy, right? We've just been purely looking at cost, efficiency and accuracy. Now, as you move forward with all of these disruptions that have happened, these three factors, which was cost, accuracy, and efficiency, they started to get affected with all of the various disruptions, right? So we had the pandemic that came in, we have the Russia Ukraine war that came in, that disrupted various supply chains. We had to look at then, how do I move my inventory, or how do I have my suppliers at a place where they don't get disrupted? That's point number one. How do I have better suppliers who I can continue to get stuff fulfilled from? Beyond suppliers, it came down to then, how do I use technology, and what do I make sure, how do I ensure that they are resilient and consistent? How do I get my flow of products consistently? Yeah. So with all of this happening, there is also then the focus of sustainability that is constantly kind of building up over time, right? So the sustainability filter constantly is there, and with the kind of introduction of a lot of various endpoint devices. For example, you have various sensors coming in supply chain. Cybersecurity has become another risk. So if I look at the events that affected supply chains, it is, the COVID pandemic, the war, Russia Ukraine war. Then we had various focus on sustainable. I'm sorry. So we had then focus on sustainability, and then we had cybersecurity challenges that are now coming in. So I'm going to do a little bit of a focus now on things that are. Oh, I'm sorry, I have not shifted the slide. Yeah, yeah. Is this visible to people? Not really, but I will talk about, I'll kind of give a little bit context over here. And I purposely carried my iPad because I saw that the colors on the screen was bad. So essentially, what are the trends with all of these disruptions? What are the trends that are happening that are affecting supply chains today? So let's look at political landscape on the extreme left, right? We have regional conflicts happening. In India, there is a Make in India focus. So there's a lot of focus to now start building and delivering from India. India is opening various platforms like the ULIP, for example, Unified Logistics Integrated Platform. It's opened ONDC, which allows you to then various kind of retailers and suppliers and transport logistics providers to come together on one common platform. So on the political side and on the platform side, we've got a different one thing happening. On the customer side, we've got customers obviously becoming very fickle, very willing to try different kind of brands that come in. So a lot of small brands are coming in. Customers are, of course, the loyalty factor is not anymore as what it used to be. Various ordering channels have come up naturally. So you've got store online, you've got marketplaces coming in, right? You've got social media sales that are happening. You've got B2B, so various sales channels that are happening. You've got things like, for example, celebrities, right? They wear certain clothes or products that gets visible on social media, and that gets viral very quickly. So how are organizations responding to things like that and making sure that a dress that was visible by, let's say, a Taylor Swift on as she got off her jet on a certain day, how does that very quickly translate in the next 5 to 6 days into my stores? So that is one more factor that has kind of come in and is driving a lot of supply chain decisions or agility. Yeah. I'm going to move on to the logistics side. So the third vertical is logistics. We had the political landscape, we had customer, now we have logistics. On the logistics side, we've got a lot of hyper local fulfillment that is happening. So we've got various hyper local service providers. In addition to that, we've got the smaller brands who have decided that I will fulfill products to customers by myself. So you've got the large, of course, the large service providers. Then got hyperlocal guys, and then you've got the individual folks who are continuing to provide on themselves. So there's a whole lot of proliferation of all of this happening. Hence, as a retailer, how do I look at it if I have got multiple brands? How do I look at fulfilling to customers? So on the logistics side, essentially that's what it is. The push on same day, next day delivery is another thing. inconsistent fulfillment by various fulfillment partners is another challenge that's happening. On the retail side, I talked about the whole D2C revolution that is happening in India, at least. A lot of small brands coming in, and hence customers now starting to look at D2C based providers. Um, a lot of the retailers are being forced, because they are on multiple channels, are being forced to now put in are being forced to have single view of inventory so that they can optimize inventory. So if you're selling across multiple channels, that becomes a challenge as well. Yeah. If I now look at the supplier side of it, right? On the supplier side of it, of course, fill rates are an important factor. um, Delivery schedules are important, and we know that we are always dealing with that challenge of having delivery schedules being on time. If we are working with smaller suppliers, the ability for them to be able to scale up to companies that are dealing with small suppliers, that becomes a problem. And naturally, the increasing demand on suppliers to prove that my product was sourced ethically and the right way, and how did it flow through my whole supply chain. So in addition to supplier, then we have the sustainability factor, right, which is about making sure that we have traceability and authenticity of the product and the journey of the product. So essentially, these factors are now are coming in on all sides. You've got a political landscape, you've got customer, you've got logistics, retail, you've got the supplier, and you've got sustainability. All of these coming together to say, okay, how is now the supply chain getting shaped? So we have moved then from cost, efficiency, accuracy now to resiliency. So it's increasing the need to be more agile, more resilient, um, be more sustainable, and of course, be more secure. Supply chains have hence changed from these three factors to now more about agility, speed, resiliency, sustainability, and security. That is the fact. That's the factor that's really driving supply chains or shaping them now, with all of these various factors coming in. Hence, what are the building blocks that we need to build? And I'm going to just talk about what are those few things we need to have to be able to build in some of these factors of agility, security, uh, resiliency in my supply chain. Yeah. So to start with, planning and execution have typically been uh, individual kind of functions. You plan and you execute. But integrated planning and execution is one of the building blocks. And I will just go into these 5 building blocks a little bit. Um, Having my warehouse a lot more automated, right? That's another area which can help me become more agile or increase my speed essentially. Having a good solid logistics platform, yeah, so operational systems automation, which is my logistics, making sure I have visibility of how the product is moving uh, s- through the entire supply chain. Collaboration with my suppliers, because if that's a problem, then how do I collaborate a lot more with the help of technology? And various track and trace systems to ensure that I have sustainability being covered, as well as authenticity of my product to my customer. So I'm getting into the integrated planning and execution. Let me see if the text is visible. I think it's fairly clear. That's good. So integrated planning and execution. Planning has typically been based on old historical data. You take that data, you crunch it, and you say, okay, what's my last year's sale? I have these dates of the year, and what's the next year sale going to look like given these events are going to happen in this coming year? It is moving from pure number crunching and historical data to more predictive. Now, what is predictive? How is it moving towards predictive? Basically, predictive means it is taking my sales information, it's taking my inventory levels at various points in time, over time, keeping track of these at various points in time, learning over time, and taking external data, for example, any disruptions that may have happened, any events that may have happened, any launches that may have happened, taking all of that, crunching that together, and then coming back with a predictive kind of number to say, how should my inventory flow if I have certain sales projections? So essentially, that's where AI is coming in. It is beyond plain analytics systems, and that's where AI is coming in from a more predictive point of view. Of course, analytics systems are doing the number crunching, but AI systems are then saying, okay, how do I predict using all of this and learning and being able to predict? So planning is getting more predictive. The integration with execution is the next point. So if one has to get more agile, you have to then integrate your planning and replenishment and execution systems. So for example, if I am replenishing a certain product and sales are not happening at that level, the feedback loop into the planning system has to go back, and the planning system has to be able to realign itself, right? So that's how we can get agility, and those are the types of systems that one can consider or look at as we are as you're kind of building or enhancing your supply chain, or as you are scaling up, right? um, there are various, of course, technologies that and tools that can be done, but a good step to do, the good way to do this would be do it in parts, and then of course do it and then kind of integrate them together. I don't have 5 minutes, I have more than 5 minutes. So, and then integrate them together. I think that's the key point, right? Of course, if you try to do everything together, it's going to be too expensive to do it. I will try to go a little bit faster. The other thing is about warehousing. So smart warehousing. Again, for small companies, warehouse, the use of sensors is not really a great idea today, because for smaller companies, because you cannot invest that kind of infrastructure. You can look at it from a software applications point of view. Look at utilization of your bins, for example. Use tools that can, with the help of AI and analytics, show me, is my bin utilization adequate for a certain type of sale? So essentially, use warehousing smartly, use applications to begin with. As you scale up, you get onto sensors and automate various types of automation that can help you see the flow of the product throughout the warehouse. On the logistics side, that was the third building block I talked about. Logistics, again, what happens when companies start to grow is you start with one platform, then you integrate with another platform, then you integrate with the third platform, because you cannot build it on your own, right? So you end up having a fragmentation of different platforms doing different things. For example, I could have someone doing my first mile or my mid mile, and I have someone else doing my last mile. So I then don't have visibility of my first mile to last mile all the way through, right? So what one needs to do there is try to have a common platform. So as one grows, as one is able to invest, go from individual platforms to a common platform, so that you then get visibility into my end-to-end flow of my product or my fulfillment flow, and then be able to take smart decisions. The logistics platform, a common platform, helps you because you can then use analytics and AI, for example, to be able to say, how do I do this in the shortest route? So you're able to then plan across segments. You're able to plan your mid and last mile together instead of having a mid mile planning and a last mile planning. That's where AI and these new techniques can come in and help you. So essentially, on the logistics platform, it's about coming to a common place, right? I talked about supplier collaboration. That was the fourth building block. Suppliers, as we said, challenge with them. Depending on the maturity of the supplier, on the technological maturity and investment capability of the supplier, being able to integrate with the suppliers is a very important point. Integrate meaning what? Not just systems, but be able to show them my sales data, for example. On the other hand, be able to see their manufacturing journey through the product, through their manufacturing. So if I have visibility of the product as it goes through their manufacturing setup, I can then know how do I plan my warehousing and logistics, right? So it's integration on both sides. Share information with them and get information back from them so that you can plan better. And again, there are tools. Once you have, it's about collecting data. Once you have the data collected, then it's about laying an analytics or an artificial intelligence tool on top of it to be able to do some more predictive numbering for you. Yeah. So integration with suppliers is a very important building block if one needs to grow. Yeah. And the last thing is about, oh, I'm sorry, I'm changing on this one and I'm not changing on that. Yeah. And the last thing was about track and trace systems. Um, so use of blockchain for various traceability, that's important. We've talked about regulations coming in to be able to show that from source to my shelf, how did the product kind of move? Okay. uh, that is important, and that's starting to get, it's a technology which is very early stage today. It's blockchain that can help you to be able to store these records as the product moves through the whole supply chain, but it's very early stage today, and that's being used. And so I think it's more about track and trace, be able to as blockchain kind of becomes more popular, be able to start tracking right from the source to the shelf. Essentially use track and trace systems. Yeah. So what are the enablers? With these five building blocks of integrated planning, we talked about smart warehousing, we talked about logistics, we talked about supplier collaboration, and we talked about track and trace, right? With these five building blocks, what are the enablers that will help me with all of this? How do I now be able to use this to actually enable myself, right? The last two pieces that will enable all of this, when I have these five in place, is to have some kind of a supply chain control tower on one side and be able to have a common data platform on the other side. So for example, if I've got all of these five pieces of building blocks in place, I'm collecting data from on my planning, I'm collecting data from my suppliers, I'm collecting my track and trace related information, I'm collecting logistics information and warehouse, have a common data analytics or a data lake kind of a platform where all of this collects in one place, and then you can link up all of this information to be able to create your control tower that can then give you a proper view of all of this data across each other. What people tend to do is, if you do not have this in one single place, then you are looking at data in isolated fashion. You're not able to link up the two. So the best thing to do is to actually build a common data lake. It is a high investment, and so companies don't have to kind of jump into it. But as you scale up and as you grow, try to consolidate as much as you can. And most importantly, with the common data platform, you need to have, of course, clean data. It's very important that your master data and all of that stuff is kept clean. You're not collecting data which is unnecessary. So unless it is there for use, it's needed for use, you don't need to collect that, right? So that's essentially these two enablers which will help once you have your five building blocks in place. That's it. I just kind of hurried it through. I think we were running out of time. So yeah, that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tamaja Lakha Lakha Shukrana. And also to presentation, Yanale. Thank you. Mr. Vikram Indani, I would request you to please be on the stage. We would be more than happy to felicitate you. To felicitate Mr. Vikram Idnani, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call on the stage Mr. Deepak Mahajan, Director, Operations Blue Ocean Corporation, to please come forward. May I also request Mr. Mirza Tahir, Assistant Director of Marketing at Blue Ocean Corporation. He is handling the console fantastically. We are more than happy to felicitate and give token of appreciation to Mr. Vikram Idnani. Thank you for these interesting and powerful insights. Ladies and gentlemen, a quick question. Want to have some coffee? Want to get up and shake it off a little bit chill? Yeah? Yes or no? A little break? All right, so the time right now is 4 o'clock. I request you, jaldi se, quickly, let's get up, grab some nice coffee, chit chat, network, and come back in 20 minutes. That means 20 past 4. 4:20, we are going to meet here back. All right? The nice smile, let's come back by 4:20.